In this lesson, we'll talk about the grab, smooth, and erase brushes. So we're not going to be necessarily going step by step through the entire sculpting of this creature, but I do want to use him as an example, and so we'll see him in different stages of completion. But right now, this is basically the first stage where we've got him subdivided, and now we need to start adding some shape. So we looked at how to use pull and the way that that pulls geometry off the surface as we stroke across it. But let's look at something that works a little bit differently. So let's go ahead and choose grab. And you can see under the attributes that our settings are not quite the same. So we do have the size, and the size can be changed in the same way, but we don't have the pressure. Okay, so as far as the height that's going to be pulled out. So what we can do with grab is essentially just grab and pull out pieces of the geometry. So let's go ahead and turn on symmetry here. So we've got link symmetry on. I'll hit Alt X to turn on the X symmetry. And now what you can do is, for instance, on the back leg here, we could go ahead and click and just pull this out. Now you can see, because this is at level 5, we're getting this very defined area that's being pulled out. You can kind of see edges along here. So typically when you're initially shaping your model, which is where you would want to use grab in many cases, you would take it down to a lower level. So let's take it all the way back down to level 2. And you can see the polygons here at level 2. You could even go down to maybe level 1 initially. But now you can see where we can start to come in, and I'll increase the brush size a little bit. So if I want to give some mass to these legs, I can come in and move those around. So you can see it's a different way of working than working with your pull. Okay, we're not stroking across the surface. It's basically like a soft modification or a soft select. Can come in here and modify the tail. Okay, we can come in and start to modify kind of the feet here. So come in and start to tweak those a little bit by just pulling those around. And again, we're working with symmetry, so any changes that we do are going to be taking place on both sides. Kind of pull up this back leg a little bit, and this is where we can start to add our sort of initial shape. Okay, so we can start to pull out this foot a little bit. Okay, maybe pull the back out a little. Just start to add a little bit more shape to it. Okay, where we have the sort of the muscles starting to come in and the arms starting to come in, we can start to define that. Okay, if we want to create the head, I want to make him sort of this kind of rhino bowl sort of a shape, so we can start to pull the head out. Okay, and so grab is going to be a great way to just initially shape your model, which in most cases is done from a lower level. We can come in here and give it more of a point up at the top, kind of taper it in a little bit. I still want it to be fairly rounded. Okay, maybe come here along the back side and do the same thing. Give it a little bit more structure than the sort of just sphere shape that it is now. Kind of bring out that spine a little bit more. Sort of bring out the front of the head. Okay, so again, as you can see, a little bit different way of working using grab. Okay, but it's going to be a really valuable part of your sculpting workflow. You're going to use it a lot, I guarantee it. So the next thing we want to look at is smooth. So let's use pull, and we'll just increase our subdivision levels, and we'll use pull to kind of come in and start to refine these areas. So again, we've got symmetry on, and now we can come in and say, okay, I want the leg muscle to sort of come up here. So I'm going to go ahead and just start sculpting this, and it's just pulling the geometry up, kind of just pull in the direction of those leg muscles, and I want it to extend sort of up into the body. I want to do the same thing here. I just want to start to sculpt this in, and I'm working here at level 3, but if you want to work at a higher level, you could do that too. I'm just going to work my way up. I want to start to define the head a little bit more, so I can come in and start to use pull to define the shape of the head. Okay, I can hit Control to start to push in areas where I think the eye might be. Can start to bring out area for like the mouth. Okay, so you can just start to block everything in. Okay, you want to just start to blend everything together, and you can hit shift to smooth that back out. Now beyond hitting shift to smooth out our geometry, we can also just use the smooth brush here. So if I come in here and bring in the eye, start to block in the mouth area. If I want to come back in and smooth that out in a very specific way with some specific settings, I can go to smooth, and this will do the same thing. We're just not hitting any keys. Okay, I'm just using it like a regular brush. You can change the size and pressure, and you can also just flood it, and that will kind of give you an overall smooth. Okay, now let's say that you have gone in and say I'm sculpting some muscles here. All right, and I come in and I sculpt some stuff up here, and I don't like it. Either it's an accident, or I've thought I was going to put something in there and I don't want it anymore. Well, what we can do is actually erase that detail. So if we choose erase, you can see that we have some of the same settings here, but what erase will do is it will take that detail back to your base. Okay, and this will work with the layers too. Right now we're just working with our initial object layer without any other layers, but I can erase that back out. So if you have detail that you want to remove, you can go back in and erase that out and then resculpt. Okay, so you can start to use your pull to block in areas, for instance, of musculature, and then you can smooth them back out. You can use a smaller brush size to sort of block in areas that are, again, a bit more detailed, or that need to be a bit more detailed. We can sort of block in the mouth, come in here, kind of block in the eye area around the eye. We want them to have this sort of a, maybe like a shell shape on the top here. And it's all about just kind of figuring this out at this point. Okay, remember, these are going to work in different ways. So pull is going to enable us to stroke across the model and create this sort of musculature. Grab is going to enable us to come in and actually select bits to pull out. So for instance, at the higher level, I can pull out something like these toes from the foot. Okay, we can come back in and kind of smooth those down, but we can sort of pull that out. Keeping in mind that at a high level like this, we are going to get a very stiff transition here. So I can come in, and then if I want to come in at a lower level and sort of pull that geometry down a little bit, we can always smooth it back in, pull it down, go back up, smooth it, pull it back down a little bit. So those are going to work in different ways. So you want to use grab to kind of initially shape out your model. Use pull, you can start to block in some areas. And remember, you can always use smooth to smooth out the detail you've created, and erase to erase out any detail that you have added that you don't want. Okay, so let's go ahead. In the next lesson, we'll talk about 3 more brushes here. We'll talk about wax, we will talk about scrape, and we'll also talk about fill. So we'll go ahead and do that next.